Hello, ladies. I'm honored that you've come to listen to me while you work. I want to explain right away, this is not a video to sit and watch. So please don't say you don't have time to watch a video because this is a radio program. It's like listening to radio in the old days. Back in the 1950s, we women used to listen to the radio as we washed dishes, and it just helped the time to pass away. And there were a lot of musical things going on in the radio at that time. And so today I want to introduce myself. I'm Mrs. Sherman and I have a blog. I am making these videos for my blog, just parking them here on YouTube. So I don't have any comments available. You can't make comments here, but you can on my blog. You can go and visit with us and see what I'm all about and what the other ladies are saying. And you can also leave a comment. I'd really appreciate that. That really is where I get my energy, is listening to seeing your comments and getting ideas for things that I could talk about. I have been a homemaker, I guess, all my life. I've been a minister's wife for 48 years, and of course been in the Lord's church all of my life anyway. And I have a broad experience with people and with home life, and I also am a veteran homeschooler. So I will throw in a few tidbits about that every now and then. And I just want to say, while I was making my notes, which, you know, my notes are not always adequate. They have a word, and I'm supposed to trigger my memory with one word. It doesn't always work. But I'll have to say how much I like this more than having to teach classes, where over the years, you know, a lot of preachers' wives had to teach classes, whether it was a ladies' class or other types of classes, children's classes. And yes, we enjoyed it, but they do cut into your time at home getting things prepared. I could never catch up. I was always behind on laundry and everything else. Sometimes I had to beg off social things in the church because I just got so far behind. And this is just so ideal because I can clean up one little space. The rest of the house can be falling apart, and I can speak to you. This is what I do for others, and I make a little studio area for that. And then afterwards, I just pick up and go finish. And you don't have to leave your children, and you don't have to leave your house. And you can use the information as you go while you're peeling potatoes and carrots, and while you are chopping things, or while you're loading things or unloading things, and or just getting tidied up around the house. It's kind of nice sometimes to listen to something. So that's why I call it Homemaker Radio. And so I just think it's a wonderful way of communicating. I'm just sorry that you can't talk back to me, but then we would all have to stop and listen. It just works out better this way, and you can turn it off when you've had enough. So I would like to say welcome to the manse. I'm always trying to put it in a different area of the house so you can get an idea of what we have here. And this is just one side of the room. And so today I want to talk, we always talk about three things. We talk about preparation, and we talk about the actual homemaking, and then we talk about people, working around people, your attitude, your family, other people, and sometimes other people that are difficult, which, and I know some of you naughty people are fast forwarding to the end part when we talk about people, because it's always so amusing, isn't it? And but today I have a couple of things I want to show you before you get on with your work. So I'm going to remind you later on not to sit here and watch me. There isn't anything to watch. All right. Today I am going to I'm recycling all my teacups, so that and maybe wearing something different with them. So because I reached the end of them, I guess I've done enough videos that I reached the end of them. And this one is absolutely gorgeous. Look at this. It kind of goes with the print that I have on. Isn't that pretty? And it is one of those Grace's teaware, and it's dishwasher safe, and there's no metal on it, no gold. So you know, if you have a microwave, you can use it. But you know, I wouldn't reheat tea at all. Tea is terrible reheated. It's not the same. If you're a real tea taster and tea drinker, you know better than to reheat tea. You know better than to stick it in a thermos. Always carry your hot water in a thermos and make your tea in the cup. as you go, because it does change the quality of the tea to put it in the thermos or to reheat it. Now, one of the things we do, if we have a pot of tea and it's getting cold, we'll put a little in the bottom of a cup. It'll be pretty strong, and add hot water to it. That doesn't seem to alter the taste that much. Anyway, I've got to show you this one more time. Isn't that pretty? I will put a picture of this on my blog, on the post, so you can see it. I really, really wish I could get fabric to actually match this, because this is pretty. This, what I'm wearing, doesn't exactly meet this. This is just absolutely gorgeous. Now, it's not one of my favorites. It's a little bit heavy. I like a more lightweight cup, and I don't believe that I use this one very much, but I am going to keep it. And I have some other things to show you too. Now, I mentioned the new florals at the Dollar Tree. Well, they have these blush colored roses, and that for $1 you get 6 blossoms on here. And of course, the newest style of floral arrangements is putting everything in the bunch over in one side of the container, and then something else in another bunch over here and over here. It's no longer take them all apart and distribute them evenly, so it makes it easier to use the florals again and again. Anyway, I wanted to show you something. Aren't those beautiful? They kind of go with this cup, don't they? I wanted to show you something about picking out these flowers, okay? Sometimes if you're not really alert, you see the way they pack them, and they're shipped and everything, they pack them all on top of each other and they can be smashed. So I wanted to show you a couple of them that I picked out that are smashed. It's pretty hard to get these straightened out unless you could probably do this and put a small rubber elastic band around it, okay? And leave it there for a while and get that straightened out. But what you need to do is look over the bouquet, the stem. It's only $1, but still, it's the stem. Look it over and see that all the blossoms are nice and full and even, and that they haven't been smashed out of recognition. Isn't that nice? And I wanted to give you another tip. Now, I have watched floral, the silken fake floral arrangements on YouTube. I've watched people do them, and they often will clip these off. You don't need to do that. You just slide them up to the top, because you're going to need all that green. Just slide them up to the top. I think it's a terrible waste to clip them off and throw them away. You just take the leaf and you just slide it up to the top, and then you can clip these off with your wire cutters. I don't do that anymore. I just kind of use these in containers, and I don't mess with them too much anymore. I think they're just pretty just the way they are, and I like that new idea of putting a clump here and a clump of gypsum next to it, and then another clump of some other color, because I can use them again, and they look like they're just picked that way and not so formal florist. So I just wanted to tell you about saving these green leaves. You don't need to throw those away. You just push them up. You're going to need that anyway. So ladies, I do have something else to show you and talk to you about. You'll get to go pretty soon. I've only been talking a few minutes, and I hope that the rest of the time you'll be able to do some housework. Okay, these gloves from Dollar Tree come in a package, 2 pair in a package. During the season, or maybe not the season, when it's a little cold and chilly and everybody's coming down with a little sniffle, if you need to go out, you put these on, and even when you're shopping or pushing the cart, you wear these, and you wear them to pack up your groceries. You wear them for everything, even touching things in the store, and then you come home and you throw them in the washer and you wash them, and then, you know, here's another pair that goes with them, and you can just wear these out and get another pair. They're 2 for $1. That's really a tremendous price, and you don't have to worry about, you know, catching something or just touching so many things. And so I wanted you to know about that, this great preventative thing. And I also wanted to bring up the fact that I think I was a bit misunderstood when I suggested that if you're not feeling well and you're not really very able, that you can order your groceries online. And I think people conjured up a thought of maybe ordering some dry old stuff from another state to come in that didn't have high quality, but no, that's not what I meant. Local grocery stores now will deliver to you. You can order online on their site, the local grocery store, the one that's just down the road, the one that's 2 miles away, the one that, or even if you're a little further away, you can be 20, 30 miles away, and you can order them from the store you're used to shopping at, and then you can drive up to the drive-up in the pickup area and show them on your phone your order, and they will load it into your car, and you can drive off. You don't even have to get out if you don't feel well, if you don't feel up to it, if there's, or you can send somebody else to get it for you. So you can get your same fresh things. You can get what you're used to getting and what you know is in the store. And so don't misunderstand me when I said if you're not feeling well and you're having trouble getting around, you can order your groceries, and I meant from your local store, the one you're used to shopping at. I didn't mean to infer that you would have to get groceries that weren't up to high standard, but you can get the ones you're used to having. And so I didn't want to mislead you. I think I was really misunderstood about that when I mentioned that if you've got a problem, if you have a health problem of some kind, you really should stay home if it can be a problem to other people. And so I think that that's really great for the health and well-being of yourself and for other people too. And so you have the convenience of ordering online. Now I live in the country, so I kind of like it. You know, I order from Hobby Lobby, and I mean, of course, it's always nice to walk around in these places. But if I'm not feeling well or a little tired or just kind of, I want to preserve my time, because with me, if I go out anywhere, the day will be half gone by the time I get home. I wanted to show you something else before you go. So 11 minutes into it, and pretty soon you'll get to shop, is you were all asking me about coffee table books and things like that. Well, the newest Victoria magazine, which is March and April 2020, it's $7.99, but if you buy it at Walmart, it's 10% off. And of course, you might be able to get the issue in a few months when it's an older issue, and get it on thrift books or some of these places even cheaper if you want. But I wanted to say that this is worth buying for a coffee table and just keeping. And when you're finished with it, keep it in your bookshelf, get it out next spring, and use it again. And this particular one is about florals, and it's about gardens. And so I really love it so much. I got one for my daughter-in-law, and my granddaughter, one of my granddaughters. And I wanted to show you the bouquets. And of course, I'm looking intently at all this because I'm going to be imitating this with the Dollar Tree bouquets that I buy for $1. Can sometimes make one of these for about $3 or even less. And I'll be looking at the containers and getting all kinds of ideas from them. And it's also a wildflower gardening magazine to this time, and who can resist the Texas bluebonnets? It's wonderful, isn't it? If you've ever seen them, fields and fields and fields of them, they're just the most beautiful thing with that little white tip on it. I can't get the fake flowers. We used to be able to get them at Walmart, the Texas bluebonnet, but of course I'm out here in Oregon, and they don't send them any Texas bluebonnets in the floral department. So I just love it. But there's another page of it. Here it is. I wanted to show you because it's an entire field of the Texas bluebonnets. Now it would be worth it just to get this and cut it out and put it in a dollar store frame and hang it up. That's just, if you're doing blue in your house, that's just beautiful, isn't it? I'll put a picture of this on. I don't want to show you too much. I don't know if I'd be allowed to. Would I get in trouble for that if you don't buy the magazine? And it's full of beautiful teacups. Now if you have daughters at home, if you have sons at home, there's your landscaping and gardening and your daughters. But if you have daughters at home, to get them interested in refinement and fine things and pretty, this is a perfect magazine for it. And I just love the colors. It's so cheerful. There was also a picture here of a little boy. I love it when they put children in there that are like gardeners and all this wonderful food. I haven't actually read it. I just noticed some of the pictures and thought that I would tell you about it. And so if you need a magazine for your coffee table. Now you can also put these in. There are covers you can get that are plastic see-through so that you could preserve them for a long time. I only get one once in a while because I'll flip through them at the newsstand. I'll flip through them, see if it's something I would want, because sometimes there'll be certain seasons that don't appeal to me. So I only get one worth saving and keeping, and I have kept every one of these since 1988. So so I just really recommend this. It's beautiful reading, and they're very clean. You know, you don't have to worry about leaving them out on the table and a child get a hold of it, because there's nothing in there that would be offensive at all. I don't even think they have liquor ads in here. They and the back always has a beautiful, and I like it because it's a real stiff page on the back. You could also take that off. We used to take these, cut out things like this and frame them for our pictures on the wall. Of course, now you can get so much better, so much more available now. You don't have to do that. Okay, so now if you've got something to do, please go do it, because there's not anything to see here. I'm not going to show you anything else, and I'm not clever enough with the camera to show you anything on how to wash dishes or how to make tea, so you'll just have to look at somebody else's video if you want to watch that. This is to listen to, and hopefully you can get a lot done. And I just love it when you leave your comment as to what all you did, what all you're capable of doing while you listen. So the first thing we start out with is our preparation, and that is your appearance, getting your mind ready to go on with your. And the next one is your homemaking. One just kind of goes into another, and the third one is working with others and working on yourself too. So I'm going to start here by saying that if you are kind of walking around in circles and you don't know where to start, you seem to be stumped as to what to do next, I would suggest you go and fix yourself up. And if you've already had your shower and dress, go and redo your hair and fix your face and put a little cologne on, and it makes a bit of a difference because it gives you the feeling of starting. And also dressing to go somewhere, and too often I think we dress up to go somewhere more important, and we dress up for others, but let's dress up for your home. And then there's no need in changing when you get ready to go somewhere. There's no need to change. I know that sounds really funny, doesn't it? Because nobody bothers to change anymore. They just go in whatever they, had on, and really don't seem to, they seem to be oblivious to what other people are having to see. And wouldn't you like to give your country and your town the dignity of visitors saying, my goodness, the women sure do care about themselves in this country. Wouldn't you like to start a movement like that? Well, it only takes one. Just be seen a number of times, enough times, and give other people courage, thinking, I got one of those dresses at home. I could wear that. I could wear that skirt. I could dress up a little better. So you do give people, one person. Why is it when one person creates a beautiful website or a video, and there are so many people that will get on there and make rude remarks because, and you're just one person. Maybe you're just one person. You live in a lower income area. You've never written a book. You've never spoken to anyone. You don't have any kind of political influence on anybody. And all these people decide to hate you. You know why? Because one person does have an influence and they're afraid of it. So you're doing something right when you get enough people objecting to it, especially if it's something that is very helpful, that's very good. And so with creating a dignity at home, I think it's really important. Check yourself often. Have a mirror to go to and check yourself. And I always remembered the women of the old days they had a window. Most people had a window. The front door had a window, or there was a window beside it, and they would check down the road and to see if their husbands were coming home. And we lived out in the country. And when they saw his truck coming down the road, they would go to the mirror, which was usually right next to the front door, and pat their hair. And it was so amusing because sometimes their hands had been in flour because they were making a pie crust or they were making some other thing, and they'd pat their hair and there'd be flour in their hair or on their face. And So, and that was quite common. And so I would like to, before we get into homemaking, I would like to talk a little bit. We talked about prayer last time, and I got quite a few comments on that. So one of the things I'd like to say to you about it is, you know, we've had a political crisis all over the world. There's always something going on, and there's always some politics to get all upset over one way or the other, and people just start praying like crazy, and they really want God to change things, and that really made me think. You know, even in church, they'll pray for the government and they'll pray for, but rarely do you hear a prayer for all the children, the grown children that have left the Lord, that have left the church, that have um, forgotten about the way they were brought up. Rarely do you hear that. And there's where the real crisis is how often and how long and how fervently do you pray for your own people, for your family. So there's nothing wrong with praying for the political situation or for the government, but just remember to pray as much or more for that wayward son or that wayward daughter or the friends you have whose children, because you might be the only one that prays for them. Have you ever thought about that? I know most people, when their children kind of fall off spiritually, they just kind of shrug their shoulders. But in the olden days, there was a lot of concern over it. They would audibly weep. People, grown-ups whose children had decided to leave the Lord, would just weep. And so make sure that when you pray for your government and the people that you're concerned about that are in politics, you make sure to remember at the same time to include your children and your grandchildren and all those that you know that need your prayers. This is so important. Let's not, you know, sometimes because of the media, you hear more about the needs of other people. You hear more about the needs of the nation. You hear more, and you know what is needed and what kind of prayers are needed. You hear more about that, but you don't. Nobody broadcasts these people who are in great sorrow because their grown children aren't coming to church and have lost their faith and or aren't practicing what is right. And so remember, no one's going to broadcast that. So you'll have to broadcast it in your own mind. Every time you decide to pray for your nation, remember to pray for your children and for other people's children that you know. And and you know something? I was so happy because I had been praying for, I have a list of grown children of other people, you know, and recently some of these people that I've been praying for, I just kind of wondered, you know, does it really help? Does it do any good? And I got a note from one of them, and they just said they were thinking of me. Thought that was interesting, and but it kind of opens the door. So now also, I was going to say also about this idea that a lot of women want to go to these retreats. Look, I have been to several of them and found them an awful waste of time to leave your children. I wouldn't go unless I could take my children, and because they were little, you know. And I often felt that I had missed out on something. But when I had gone to any of them, whether they were ladies' days or just like half-day retreats or whatever, I found out that it wasn't all in my taste. It wasn't all for me. That I could have. It suited some women maybe who needed that sort of thing. But I, having been a teacher and everything, found that I needed something a little different. So what I decided to do, and because I was homeschooling my children, I wanted to make it meaningful for them too. I didn't want to have experiences away from my children. I wanted them to grow up. I wanted to grow up with them. I wanted to, you know, enjoy their growing up and grow up. So I often say, well, these are my children. We grew up together, and we're still growing up together. So what I did is I decided to create a once a month retreat. I think I only did it once because it was a lot of work, but I wanted to try it out. So what I did is I spent some time getting all the right food ready so that it would be easy to prepare, and I made myself a dress, and I picked out the songs, and I made a little lesson, and I demonstrated how to sew something and how to cook something and how to um, and scriptures that were meaningful, and we spent some time in prayer. I did it with my children. I don't even know if they remember that I was trying to do that, but and I beautified my home as though we were having a retreat there. And I would suggest, you could probably, with your creativity and your imagination, you could probably create a one-day retreat once a month or just once in your home for yourself and your family, or you could even have a friend. But I think it would do more good to do it at home, to create a retreat at home, because then you can have your favorite everything. And if you're having trouble getting, of course, it's so hard to get away anymore. And it's also, I have had retreats in my home in which no one came because people are just too busy and they'd rather do something else, and they really don't want to sit still for very long. So I have had a retreat in my home, and one day I created it and enjoyed it tremendously because it was so spiritually uplifting. It was a day to focus only on the spiritual things. And so also I wanted to go to the homemaking idea. Now I have mentioned several times different homemaking tips, but I'd like to mention this thing about the teacups, because one of the things that teacups can do for you is, if you are very low income, you live in a humble manse like I do, having teacups elevates you to the style of the rich almost. It's so very elegant. They're so beautiful, and they help you to raise above the common, and makes life special. So I always let my children drink out of the teacups. They enjoyed them, and if something broke, well, there's more where that came from. I do have several teacups from the set of 6 that a lady sent me, the anonymous lady, and I saved a couple of them out because they matched some fabric that I had, and I believe I've saved 3 of them to show you later. If I ever get those dresses finished, those 3 teacups are for. So because the fabric was amazingly coordinated with it. So now I have spoken for about 30 minutes, and if you have had enough, you can go on to someone else. If this hasn't suited you, you can go on. You don't have to worry about having time to watch a video, because this one was for listening. And so I would like to say that in homemaking, you've got to be motivated by something more than just cleaning up something or doing a job. I think one of the problems with so many of us that grew up in the 50s and 60s was that the parents had such a grueling attitude towards work. It never, I think, the way they grew up was, work was hard and you didn't enjoy it, and it had to be done, and you did a good job. And of course, you got a great deal of satisfaction from it. But after I read Emily Barnes' book, The Spirit of Loveliness, I realized you don't have to do that to your children. You can tell them, when you clean up your seating area, you can make it beautiful. You can add this and that. You can do this. And she showed things as delightful as putting a little bouquet of wildflowers in the fridge. So when you opened it up, there'd be something pretty there. And she also would, suggest playing music. I mean, putting in music to listen to, and lighting scented candles or melts and things like that to make life at home happy and beautiful. And when you are doing your work, there is something more pleasant about it, so that it almost becomes a hobby in itself to work. I knew a couple of young women who enjoyed work so much that when they went to see their mother, they grabbed a broom and they grabbed whatever they could, and they just cleaned her sink and swept, and they just enjoyed it. They were just when they were little girls, they had playthings, like a play kitchen, and I think they even had a playhouse, but they just learned to enjoy the work. And I think it's really dangerous and harmful to to put your children to work in the home and to be angry about it. I don't think that's productive at all. And I don't think it ever would have worked with me. In fact, that's one reason I don't think that women can work and do a beautiful creative job with someone standing over them and telling them what to do. Because you lose your motivation. If someone were to tell me, "Oh, I see that area of the floor needs to be swept," I probably would just slump and look at them like, "Well, why don't you sweep it?" But it's my home and I want to, but I want to when I want to, and I want to put my heart into it. I don't want somebody else pushing me. And I think we have to remember that too, to coach children cheerfully and gently when we're teaching them how to work, and even put a little humor in it. Now, one of the things that you know about a coach is a good coach doesn't tell his team members that they're a bunch of rotten, failing individuals and that they'll never amount to much. And so if you are giving a good coach a coaching sort of speech, then you have to say, you all have beautiful talent and ability and creativity, and I'm going to be looking forward to seeing what you can do with this room to make it lovely. And so also to lead them on to something greater, so that each time that they do something, it's better. They make life better. They make life better for themselves and better for you. And also that they think they should feel that they're part of the home, that they're part of investing in the home, that this home is theirs too. And I think that's really, really important. Now, I also want to talk about motivation and about people that try to demotivate you. And there will always be those types. There always have been. I mean, you can't blame the internet for trolls and for all the negative that goes on, because that went on. That always went on. They're just you just knew who they were. And there was always somebody to discourage you. There was always somebody to tell you that it couldn't be done. Remember the poem, somebody said that it couldn't be done. If you'll recall, I read that poem, Edgar A. Guest, and someone sent me a beautiful poetry book by Edgar A. Guest, and he was a newspaper editor who was in charge of putting the human interest stories in papers after the Second World War. He was a British man that had moved to America, and he was in charge of these little fillers you put in newspapers with the, you find the poems, the recipes, the human interest stories. And after a while, he found it easier just to write his own poem and stick that in there. And the volume of poetry that I have of his is that big. And he knew that after the war, Americans would need something to, they would need to have a positive outlook on life, and not to think of everything as being dreary. In fact, he had a poem that was called Leave It at the Door, and it was about a man who was coming home from work, and he was weary and he was discouraged, and he'd been beaten down by his co-workers mentally, and he was told, you just leave that at the door before you pollute your beautiful home and your sweet wife and your sweet babies with that kind of attitude. Leave it at the door, he said. And then the other one that was probably one of my favorites was, somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he tried. So he buckled right in with a bit of a grin, and he something put his shoulder to it and tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. And when someone tells you that you can't, when they doubt you or when they tell you or try to discourage you, then you use that as a stepping stone, as a signal to go ahead and do it, and to do it well. And I think a lot of people are very suspicious, I'm sorry to say, of the homemaker, because they wonder, what does she do all day? Because you're not being watched. You know, when you go to work in a workplace, all your coworkers are watching. They're all watching each other. And I guess some people are afraid some people aren't going to do their work, and they're going to get away with doing nothing, getting paid anyway. So they're you get home and there's nobody monitoring you and there's nobody watching you. And other people become very, very interested in this. Like, what do you do all day? Do you just sit around? And one of the things that takes a lot of skill, like I'm sitting here in this beautiful, cleaned up living room. It's taken me quite a while to get it how I like it today. And someone might come to the door and I'll invite them in and we'll sit down and they'll notice I've been reading my new Victoria magazine and I'll show it to them. And I look relaxed, I'm dressed up, and I look relaxed, kind of like I'm on vacation. And they'll wonder, how do I just sit around all day? But they never really look and say, somebody cleaned this floor. Someone cleaned off the table. Someone washed the dishes. They don't see that because you as a homemaker seem to be so at ease and so relaxed. This is your home. You're not under any stress, you know, except maybe to get some things done at a certain time. But they will come and they're curious. They want to know, well, what do you do all day? And I have invited people over for lovely dinners, and it's for the purpose of showing them, you know, this is what we do at home. But they somehow don't see it. They don't get it. And so when you get someone like that who's sort of, I don't know if they're trying to discourage you or if they're just suspicious or what, you could say, depending on how polite you want to be, you could say, well, this is my business. I'm in what you call privately employed or self-employed. You know, self-employed people have to make decisions for themselves. There's nobody telling them what time they have to do something. There's no one telling them what time to knock off work. There's no one telling them what the quota is for the day. You have to tell yourself. And I'll write down my own quota on my list here and maybe get one thing done. But at least I'm home. I'm guarding the home. I know when the mail comes. I know when to put that away. I know when to write down when we've run out of something that I need to get at the grocery store, and those things are really important. I see that everyone is safe. I see there are no sharp edges around here or anything anyone can get hurt on. And I'm guarding the home, and I'm guiding the home. And that's what the Bible says in 1 Timothy 5:14 and Titus 2, that the women, and speaking about the women in the church, I'm sure, the believers, you know, they're supposed to be keeping the house, guiding it, and guarding it. And uh, even if you're just kind of resting for a little while, you are aware of the home. You are aware of the atmosphere that you're putting in it. And I always think that it's fun after doing a bit of really hard work, like cleaning up the kitchen or the laundry room or all the sweeping and stuff, to add some kind of little bright spot somewhere. And that's why I took such an interest in the florals and making floral bouquets. And since the Dollar Tree has got all these, they've got 3 different shades of these blushes. Some of them have got a little bit more coral in them, and others are almost white, but they're still the blush color. And then there are some that are almost all this coral pink. And they have 3 or 4 shades of them. And so what I do when I need to sit down for a little while after I've been doing quite a bit of whatever I do here at home, and home is more than just the dishes, the laundry, and the sweeping. There are other things you have to do too. You have to sort through things. You have to you open a drawer and you get some utensils out and you realize that drawer needs to be cleaned. The other day I cleaned out under the sink. There's a cabinet there. I try to keep as little as I can down there, but it still gets dusty, and it still collects some kind of dirt. So I cleaned that out, and then today I'm going to clean out the refrigerator. There's always something to do. But you need to explain to people that you are self-employed now, and you do get paid, because as you look after, as you guide, as you guard, and as you keep, you do preserve the family income. You really do, and you're guarding the income. Now, if you were to leave every day, you probably find that income gets used up pretty fast with all your coming and going. And so I try to stay home if I can possibly. Now, it's almost impossible for women to stay home, because if you've got to go out and pay a bill, or you've got to go out and get some fresh something or other, or all of a sudden you find out someone's coming, you've got to go out and get some things. But I try to at least make sure that I get 1 or 2 whole days at home, that I get enough supplies that I can stay home 1 or 2 whole days. And it used to be hard because in the olden days we had cars that didn't always work, and we'd get snowed in, and the cars could get stuck or they could break down. And now everything's pretty much everything's workable, everything's working, and it's pretty efficient. So we were forced to stay home more. But it's a wonderful time, this era, to shine for Christ and to use your homemaking as a motivation to show your love and to show your gratefulness for Christ in your life. And really, God is the author of all things that are beautiful and orderly. You know that, don't you? So ladies, I hope that you got something done. I've only been speaking for about 40 minutes, and I think that you probably had time to make up one bed, or do a bedroom, clean up a bedroom, or clean up a bathroom. And it's hard to get in those little spaces, isn't it, and clean it up. So it's really nice to have something to listen to. I know I often listen to music or a favorite video that I like to hear, because I like some of the period type movies, because they have such interesting sayings in them, and I've often picked them up and used them in a humorous way. So ladies, I want to remind you, of course, pray about everything, but then let's add something else to it, and that is to be thankful for everything. Be thankful for everything you see, everything you touch, everything you do, everything that you hear that is good. And just be thankful for your life, and that you can serve God another day. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful time. Be sure and leave a comment. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you later. Bye.